You ready? All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock and I will call this special town board meeting to order. And I will begin tonight's meeting with pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Rebecca, can you verify that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes.
All right, could you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Carrie May,
Present.
Councilman Terry Funneman.
Present.
Councilwoman Adeline Rudolph,
Present.
Supervisor Pearson.
Present. Thank you very much. And we have no other business tonight other than our budget workshop. So the structure will be, we'll start out with a privilege of the floor. Then we will enter into the workshop session and then we will conclude with the privilege of the floor. If anybody has any, so that way people might have, if they have comments before or after, those will be able to be made at those two times. All right. So Karen, I know you wanted to speak.
So I had a couple of comments about the budget, and the one person here who knows me knows I go through it line by line every year, and that would be Terry and Jim, of course. So there were 4 items I just wanted to speak briefly about. The first one is on page 67, and it's the line item for adult recreation. It amounts to, there's several line items, but total it's about $3,000. And I commend you for keeping that on the budget because we are going to use it this year. And it took a long time to get an adult education program into this Parks and Recreation program in this town of Canandaigua. And I, for one, would like to keep it there mainly because I'm an adult, I'm old, and I want something to do. And I'm not the only old person in this town that enjoys some of the activities we have. So the $3,000 is a great line item, and thank you for putting that in there. The second thing I noticed was there on page 53, there is a communications consultant for $35,000. And I wanted to let you know that we discussed this in the Citizens Implementation Committee at length. And our concern is that we are not getting through to the town of Canandaigua residents. We're getting through to the number of residents, primarily those that follow us on Facebook or who are signed up to get our communications. And I can tell you that Facebook is pretty much followed mostly by old people. And those are not the only people we want to touch in this town. And it was suggested that we have someone who knew more about digital communications than we do, or than the staff does. And there was staff at that committee meeting. And we thought that having perhaps either another job opening in the town, which costs more because, you know, there's other stuff other than salaries, or a consultant to help steer our town dollars into places that more people will hear about what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. And one thing I can give you an example of, I cannot tell you how many people I hear about the Motion Junction Playground. Now, some of you know I'm heavily involved in Victor and Farmington because I'm in that Rotary Club. And so I'm hearing things from Canandaigua residents, Victor residents, Farmington residents about that great new park that the city of Canandaigua put in right there by Happiness House and the Civic Center. And I'm tired of saying, no, that's not the city of Canandaigua. That's the town of Canandaigua that did that, and they're different. But you see where I'm going here? We're not reaching the right people. For something that large, we're not reaching the right people. So I'm pleased to see that you have a line item there with some money for that. The third item was it's on page 60, the recreation director, which I am also on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and we had a meeting last week, and it was mentioned about perhaps partnering with the new YMCA for recreation, summer recreation programs, which to me would limit the amount of work that would be there for another recreation person. So that's a line item that, you know, might be up for grabs, and I'm not sure what the plan is for that particular line item. But I'm just telling my point of view that if the Y takes over the recreation, and I mean, it's even, we talked primarily about the summer children's program, but it could be conceivable. I could see the Y taking over the senior program and offering more programs than we're currently able to offer. And so that would pretty much take all the work off of that second person, I believe. I leave that to your judgment. And the final item, of course, you know where my heart is, and that's on affordable housing. And that is on page 71. There is the entire $10,000 MRB allocation still left on there. So some of that I feel will be used this year and this calendar year, because we have asked for some data to be given to us, and I believe we will have that this year. I do believe you need to leave some in that amount. It's, you know, I know the county has taken over doing an inventory, and that's wonderful. But you know why the county took over doing an inventory? It's not because out of the blue, the county thought, oh, you know, we ought to do a housing and transportation inventory. No, it's because at every single month at our Ontario County Economic Development Committee meetings, I bring up affordable housing. Every single month, and any time in between, I bring it up. And whoever I can talk to, I talk to about them. It's because of this team that the county took note, and we should all be aware of that. And I feel that this team needs to have the backing of the town to continue to keep this on the forefront. And I can tell you that there are people in this town, and these aren't, I'm not talking about homeless people. I'm talking about people who have income that are not able to live in this town. They cannot afford the rental increases at some of our local apartment complexes. God forbid that they'd ever be able to buy a house. Now, we're fortunate that mortgage rates are going down a bit, and the market pricing on homes has declined a bit from what I have been reading. I don't know if the same is true here, but we still need to keep this on the forefront. We still need to remind people that, yes, there is an issue, and yes, we're on top of that issue, and yes, we're going to be part of the answer to preparing some sort of plan to hopefully alleviate that issue. So other than that, it was really a long document with many lines. I looked at them all, and I have to commend the people that put this together because it's just mind boggling. And I think Karen probably knows, I know personally what it's like to do a budget for a corporation, and it's not fun. So tonight's the night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I told you I'd let you go longer. I didn't even have my timer on. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time for the privilege of the floor? Okay, seeing none, I don't believe there's anybody online who would like to hear, who would like to be heard. All right, so this takes us to discussion. So I'll open the floor to board members for any specific discussion, agenda items that they would like to tackle at this time.
Yeah, the biggest item
What's that?
biggest item we have to resolve is the fire.
Yeah,
That's it for the next
so you want to start with that one, Terry?
Might as well, I mean, that's the biggest one. I think.
Okay. I mean, that's 25% of our audience too, even more than that, if you average in the Zoom people. So as we look at fire protection, one thing that I would, heading into this discussion, we are at, do you have those numbers up in front of you, Terry, or Doug, do you have those numbers to pull up? I'm trying to get my sheet in front of me. Yeah. Okay. Just trying to get it situated.
It's hard to see.
Thanks.
What page is that now? Is that on a
This is
page
a
in here?
worksheet.
It's not
This
on
is
a
a
page.
worksheet, you know, and so this is based on the most recent conversation. This would be that 850 number and the 590 number. Right here, right here. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the tax levy, that's just the interesting. The appropriation of $50,000 in sales tax, you can't see it because I have a slide screen over on that side, and then 25,000 in undesignated fund balance, which would take the tax rate up from 78 cents to 91 cents.
The 25 is from the general fund unassigned, right?
Say it again.
The 25 is the general fund unassigned.
I know,
It's
the
where,
fire protection district.
Okay. okay, and it's going back into just city?
No. So it's total revenue, total expenses. They
Yeah.
obviously go up and have 1.4 million.
Yeah.
So the expenses being the 850 and the 590 for the total of the 1.44 million, right? And then you have to have the revenue to match up that. So the revenue, the 25,000 is taking some of the unassigned fund balance that is currently estimated at about $75,000. So that would reduce that
Okay.
unassigned fund balance to about 50,000.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
And taking 50,000 in sales tax appropriated based on our last budget workshop. Well, I think we had actually said 75,000, but
we pulled it 50 and 25,
Yes.
right? So with that, I would actually like to propose increasing that by another 50 and pulling that from our sales tax. There are some other general budget savings that we can find later on, but we can't put that money in the fire protection. But we can pull that from our sales tax. So I'd like to propose raising that number to 90 for year one. And let's see.
900,000.
Yes, what did I say? 90?
90.
90, yeah, there's no 90.
That's
up there.
terrible. idea.
Sorry, 850 to 9, yeah, so $90. 850 to 900, so I'd like to propose taking that 850 to 900,000. And then looking at where we are, so promising that extra 50,000 going forward. If the city, I know that part of our discussion is that 18 firefighters plus the chief. So I know that 18 firefighters would need to be met. And when we hash out the contract and hash out the terms, that would need to be clearly spelled out. But I would like that, this extra 50 to be tied into that we hit that number, and then this extra 50 goes in as like that escalator or that bonus for hitting that number.
This
What you're
is
saying
solely
is an
for,
extra 50 one time. You're not adding 50 in the out years.
I would propose for them, initially I had thought we were to go and raise that, but I would propose for the next 3 years as the increase in capital and other items and other expenses that they're gonna have, I would propose a 50, 50, and 50 increase. I don't know if we could tie that into sales tax revenue, that if sales tax remains stable, if we have a declining sales tax revenue, that we wouldn't meet those goals, because it would
Yeah,
have
that's
to
my
come,
only
it would have to come from sales tax.
That's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
did you just switch the number? Because I lost.
He did.
it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just changed this,
Thank
just to
you.
see what it would do
Yes.
to the.
He went to the
rates.
900 from
Yeah.
you.
What's driving this?
The increase?
Yeah.
Well, I know that
Is
there's,
Cheshire, just because Cheshire has asked for more money?
no, I think part of the issue and part of what we're seeing is and we know it, I mean, the increase in capital, the increase in equipment, the increase in maintenance. Trucks and other necessities are a lot more expensive than they were when we first entered into this agreement. They're a lot more expensive than anybody could could predict at this point. So doing this, I think, personally, I feel it's the right thing to do to help get us there to make sure that we provide that level of protection, fire protection for the residents of the town. We have town residents who are in outlying areas. We have town residents who, we have other equipment that's necessary for rope rescue and that comes into play at places like Ananda within the town, and they're pretty specific to some things that we have. So I would, what's driving it? What's driving it is the fact that I feel like at this point, it's the right thing to do moving forward. And I think with where our sales tax has been, I don't see it decreasing, even if the economy slows, which people are predicting. I see it holding stable to where we've been. In our area, I don't see a decline.
That's my only concern is
Right.
I don't want to promise it and not be
Right.
able to continue to deliver it
Mhm.
if it's coming from the
Right.
sales tax.
Well, if you promise it, you have to deliver it. So,
Well, yeah,
Right.
exactly what
I
I'm
mean, that's
saying.
the problem.
Going forward, I mean, if it's something that they're used to staffing at a
Right.
particular level because we funded at that and then we were unable to do that next year because
Well,
the sales tax. was-
the 850 is where we got to for the 18+1.
Yeah.
So this would be additional to that.
When would we be giving them 850 or 900? That wouldn't start January 1st, so would it? Because they don't have 18 people.
I would propose that as part of that agreement, after we allocate funding, when we come to that agreement, that we write that into our next 3-year contract. That when that fund, that to match that funding level. The funding level to match the number of employees.
So what level would we be paying prior to them getting to 18?
That we have to, that's a good question, that we have to include in there. We have to either stay where we are. Or
What did they
Work
need
to
for
that point.
18 plus? The fire chief, they asked for 950 for 18 plus.
They
fire
originally
chief.
asked for 1,050, and then they ordered 950 for the 18 plus the 9G, and then they agreed to 850 for 18 plus the fire.
Oh, they did.
They agreed to 850, so I don't see why we're giving them 50 more.
Has the report come out from the county?
it has, it has not been presented to us yet. With the initial stages, I know the initial parts of the report have come out.
Upping this by 50 isn't giving Cheshire any more, it's giving the city more.
What's that?
Upping this by another 50 grand is giving that to the city, not to Cheshire.
Correct.
And the chief tried to answer my question when I asked him, although John cut him off.
Right.
They need 18 people, whether we're with them or not. In my view, anything extra we give them beyond what they agreed to last week is just subsidizing the city budget. Not necessarily in fire, right? Someplace else. I'm not in favor of doing that.
They agreed at 850 for 18 plus the chief.
Correct.
And that's next year's budget.
What's that?
I mean, I agree with Terry, unless
there was some other,
Now, even at 850, just so this conversation that I had with the city managers, it's gonna take time to fill. They currently have 15, even that, plus the fire chief, that's the 16. So even if you go into 18 plus fire chief, they have 3 positions they need to fill. The way the civil service exam else, it could conceivably take well into halfway through the year before they can hit that 18. Right. The city manager does tell me that there are 2 currently that could be transfers in. But if those transfers don't work by the time you do the civil service and the list, it's not an overnight process. And that was even the argument that I was making to John for the 50 is you're going to have a little bit of flexibility here in that you probably aren't going to you're not gonna have 18 on January 1st. I can almost guarantee that. 18 plus the chief. That would be 3 transfers in over the next couple of months. I think that becomes very difficult for them to do that.
So is our money that we're funding the city though, are we exclusively giving that for paying personnel? Or is it also intended to be used towards maintenance and equipment?
So the current contract is all based on personnel, so that's where the 650 comes from. So it goes back to that original 2019 fire study where they had 12 and we said that we would share in the incremental increase of 1 additional firefighter. They gave us the number that 1 additional firefighter was $100,000 and we said it's supposed to cost 50-50 for each additional firefighter getting up to 18. So that's where all of this came from. So even at 18, that number is actually 750. That's actually my original number. That actually is 750. You can make an argument that personnel costs and everything else have gone up, right? And that's where or even that maybe we weren't even paying our fair share of the fire chief. So you could absolutely justify additional money going to that. But it never really included equipment. That's to answer your question. It was never about, so even the contract, the current agreement has financial penalties if they don't hit certain
Yes, I know
minimum
that.
staffing
Yeah.
thresholds.
So with this, with that gray area, would you propose, so are in this, what are your thoughts on if we go forward, whether with the 850 or the 900, do we, with starting that January 1st then, or do we start that when they have that number?
Well, we have to have a contract
Right.
in place for January 1st.
Right.
So I mean, we built it in before
The
the
penalties,
penalties, so that
But-
there's a next number.
but what I'm saying is with this, I mean, I'm gonna support, regardless, I'm gonna still ask for the increase to 900, and it might happen, it might not. But then in that case, I think we start, and on January 1, we fund it at that full amount. Whatever we agree to tonight, allowing them the time to get the firefighters in. And if within a reasonable time that would have to be spelled out in the contract, it's not reached, then there could be a penalty applied.
What's the, since this is coming from sales tax, what's the impact on the tax rate? Is there not an impact on tax rate?
No, well, I haven't figured that out yet because of the levy, right? So I've got to go up here and I've got to increase this. If we're gonna increase this by 50,000, that's gonna impact the tax rate, right? Because that's the tax levy, right? If we're just gonna increase sales tax to 100,000, that's not gonna impact the tax.
That's
rate.
what I'm wondering, so
Right.
that's not gonna impact the tax,
So-
it's still 91.
Correct. That wouldn't impact the tax rate at all.
And is that below there, is that the 273, is that the cost for a roughly $300,000 house?
Yes.
that's the fire protection portion of the tax.
Yeah.
A home valued at 309-ish.
It was different all over, remember?
117 is the average for.
Oh,
300-ish,
300, yeah.
300-ish.
So our bottom line would be 1.45, 1.44 million.
And is that
Or 1.49.
3857, that's the increase this year? If that's at the 91?
So those numbers, they haven't updated here, so let me just go back to the 850, right? So the total budget would be 1.44. That's revenue and expenses, right? So that gives you this 91 cent tax rate.
Yep.
This does lower this to it, and then but that lowers that to about 50,000, right? There's your assessed value, and the fire protection tax would be for the average $300,000, that's $273, so that would be $38.
And if you change that to Jared's proposal with 100 coming from the sales tax,
If you're gonna
It's the
take
same.
100,000 from the sales tax, it doesn't impact that. If you increase the tax levy, that impacts the tax rate.
so it doesn't change the tax rate, it just gives a home to more money from the additional sales tax.
It takes the sales tax away. from the general fund.
Yes.
So any other thoughts?
Well, I struggle with if they've accepted 850 for 2023, possibly 2024 is where you start adding that money.
Oh, it goes up
So
to
the
24.
tentative agreement, I'm just gonna highlight all
Sure.
three of these, is $125,000 increase and another $125,000 increase the following.
That's the plan.
That's the
Current.
current, their agreement.
That's what they agreed to last
Oh.
Tuesday.
Oh,
So that takes it up to 1.1 million.
Right.
So if it was at 900, you could have smaller future increases, but still getting to 1.1 in 25.
hmm. You're still gonna ask for 975.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I mean, even if you put it at 900 this year, they're still want that 975, so you're not reducing next year's budget.
You want to book 50 next year too.
Oh, every year? Oh, every year. Oh.
50, 50, and 50.
Oh.
And the big thing for us for the unknown, now, if it's coming from sales tax, it doesn't have as great an impact, but the unknown is the
The what, I'm sorry?
revaluation.
Yeah.
So this number down here to come up with this tax rate of $1.08 estimates a 9% increase in the assessed value.
Which we could see since we're at where we are at this point. I mean, we're technically at 81. I mean, but we could easily see that go up. So is there any scenario where anybody would support adding that extra in? Would you support it as a one-time this year to help bridge the gap and help over that bump?
I mean, I would if it would allow them to hire all three in the one, in this year, so that they're ready to go for the following year, as opposed to doing one or two this year or
Right.
one or two the next year. I mean, I think the most important thing everybody's reached out to us about, and from my knowledge base of the system is the staffing level. That's, I mean, and that's the part that we're helping to assist with, so.
Karen, could you support that as a 1 year rather than carrying it over into the other years?
Well, I struggle with the reason behind it. If they said, we'll take that
Right.
deal. So we're upping their deal.
Right.
And I don't understand.
So I know, so I'd have some discussions with Mayor Palumbo in the days after. And he's still concerned. I mean, yes, this does address the staffing. But again, and I know it's not specifically in the budget, and I know it's not specifically in the fire study, but there are the other costs associated. With that. It's like if somebody, if the county, if we're hired to provide a service with some of our equipment, with our employees, we're hired to provide a service with our employees, whether it be plowing, whether it be trenching, whether it be something. And we're going through and we're doing that, and that's where we are. And then suddenly the price of that equipment to replace it increases 50%, 60%.
But that's an item, not a contract. So what would they offer in addition for their 50,000 at this time? What are they proposing where they would
Yeah,
use?
it's just the same service, but 50 feet
Right,
more.
it is. It would be the same service, but it would allow that the improvements in equipment, the improvements in replacing what they need to be able to continue to provide service for the southern portion of the town, the portions that only they can cover.
Which they would pay anyway. Because they're also protecting that city, which,
So you're gonna take this from sales tax.
Sales tax revenue.
I mean, the key for me is it's not impacting the tax
Right.
rate.
And we have, I mean, we still have the fact that we have 2.5 million in unallocated reserve funds that we can't have. That need to be earmarked somewhere. So
Otherwise, it's a disservice.
we're gonna have more money coming back into that from sales tax,
why not take it out of that instead of sales tax?
because we can't.
Unallocated,
We can't because that's in the general fund.
they made a deal last Tuesday night, in my opinion, that's what I would support. They're the ones that said it,
Yep.
so. if they didn't mean it. well, it's on them.
I kind of lean with Terry. I mean, unless they said, you know, if we had an extra 50,000, we could put it here, or
Right.
use it there. Thank you for considering this, but I'm not hearing it.
Right.
I mean, next year is certainly another, are you doing a 1-year or 3-year contract? Three.
So this will be a separate vote. That'll be a separate vote. The contracts will- for both.
The contract would be a separate vote.
Will come to you out. This, for our purposes right now. is the-
What's that?
Impact. for the year.
Sorry, 23.
But the new contract would be 1/1/23 for both through 12/31.
Right.
So the other thing is that we've run into in previous contracts with the city is, and you know, they can't control that, but you have a active career firefighter who may be out for an extended period of time due to an injury, due to sickness, whatever. They're down that person, but yet because of the wording of the contract and the active firefighter, we still have a fund for that. So, I mean, I hear what everybody's saying. They have some flexibility in, you know, the amount that we've been paying has been based on the total number of career firefighters that they are on board.
Do you have any idea what they tax their residents, their taxpayers in the city?
Oh, I want to say they're for, it's
It's
3 or 4.
No, it's actually
Dollars?
total, the budget of
It's part of it, right?
the city of Canandaigua, so it's $7 in total. See, that it's hard because it's comparing everything,
But it's all one budget.
it's all one budget.
Oh, they don't have any special districts.
No.
Didn't the fire board have the like amount that different municipalities are paying?
It did, I want to say there was two, I want to say it's 6-ish million for the total fire budget for the city. Ballpark.
All right, so as it stands, we're currently at 850,000. So I would like to, I'll still put it out there, I would like to propose raising that to 900. And I think since that is a change to what's on there, we'll vote on that first, and then we can come back and vote on the 850. If that doesn't go through, is that acceptable to everyone? Okay. All right.
This is just for 2023.
This is, yeah, so one time, a variation from this, proposing a one-time increase in the 2023 budget to 90,000, to 900,000 with that extra 50 coming from sales tax revenue. That is above and beyond, well above and beyond what we anticipated for the year. We're going to be well over what we anticipated, so it's not taking any from the general fund or any sort of thing like that. All right, so can I get a motion
So moved.
and
I'll second it.
a second? Okay, all in favor of increasing to 90,000, signify by saying aye.
To
900,000.
900,000.
I started it once and I can't get it out of my head. What's going on? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Hey,
Say aye for 1 year only.
Okay. So for 1 year, the
Sales
increase,
tax.
sales tax revenue to 900,000,
So sales tax.
To 100.
sales tax to
It says
one,
100 and the total to 900, not 90 or
not
not.
90, yeah. I had you guys down to 9,000 per minute, so.
9,000.
So that takes the fire department budget for next year, 1,490,200,000. With 100,000 in sales tax.
Okay.
levy.
And that will not affect next year, the 2024 increase.
So the 2024 increase is 39.75.
Right, and it will not increase proportionately with that extra 50,000 in there, so it will stay as constituted on that sheet.
Will we have the opportunity next year to review the sales tax and apply it in that direction if needed? No.
The contract was spelled out the full amount for all 3 years. When you do the budget, you can decide to either use sales tax or to
Yeah.
levy the taxes.
So if we were to we could use sales tax to
Next
lower
year.
the lower the rate if necessary, depending on where the reevaluation comes in.
But the numbers would be what are up there now.
Yes,
Mhm.
the numbers are what they are. Okay.
900, 975 and 1.1 in
And
2025.
let me just ask, because especially with this being recorded and being live, I know I'm going to call them up and say, is there any stipulation that they have to have 18 by a certain timeframe to get that?
That's gonna be in the contract, right?
It'll have to be in the contract, but we.
But what we can start, we're in open session, so it's one of the few times where we can talk about what we're thinking and where we are.
I would hope they'd be staffed by June 1st.
Because that gives a couple cycles of the civil service. I don't know how often they're,
I would want to hear from them what they would anticipate for a time frame, how long that would take before we're penalizing them on it.
So what's the penalty?
well, we stipulated 100 per firefighter. So anything below that, I would say that would be
And we're talking about
The penalty.
18
we're
plus.
talking about
chief.
18 plus.
They don't have 18 by June.
Mhm.
What happened?
They have 16, then that would be a penalty, it would either be returned or it would adjust the subsequent
How do
year.
we pay this? We pay it one check?
Yeah, we pay them one check and we pay it in March, is what the current
Okay.
contracts have always been. And if they don't have the number by March 1st, it's a $50,000 penalty for each firefighter.
So that's reasonable.
So March 1st, so do we want March 1st or do we want,
And March 1st is a
Or we
quick
can delay
turnaround.
the payment to them, not pay them until June.
Why don't we reach out and find out
yeah,
what seems feasible to them?
Those are the previous agreements. It's
Right.
March 1st, and it's the 50,000, that's the current. contract.
or it could be half and then half by June when they would have the time.
There's other wording that's gotta be. looked at
Right.
In terms of the contract, but as long as. we don't
Okay.
So,
March 1st, tie into their budget.
no,
There's-
there's calendar, year just like that.
Okay, so. Fire district, are we good? We're done, we put it aside, anything else you need from us in the other direction on fire? Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, for kind of following us along and putting up with my drop the balls on that, my errors and my omission of a few very significant zeros. I apologize for that multiple times. Okay, any other thoughts or items?
On fire? Or just
No,
in general?
moving on in general.
Can I just say before you get into other nuts and bolts, the budget message is always a work of art. I do
Yes.
appreciate it, but throughout the document, I found 3 different references to the average home in Canada. And I understand in different areas, the average is different. But to the untrained eye, I first read it 309, then I read 299, then I read 282. So I wish there was some way to either say where this number came from, why it's that region, or average those 3 numbers together.
Yeah, and that's designed to give a snapshot, right? So if you look at the budget at a glance here, in previous years, what we did, so this is the 2022 number.
Right.
The average was the 309, right? And that's to give you a snapshot at what the highway, what the fire, what the water, all of that stuff, and then, just kind of what that equates to the average. And then obviously, when you get into the particulars of the various districts, the fire is a perfect example here at $1.4 billion divided by 4,999 parcels. That's where that 299,197 comes from. So it's really, it doesn't pertain at all to the budget other than just trying to give you an idea of what the average home would experience. So it's plus or minus $300,000. If you just want to use a generic round number of 300,000, that gets you in the ballpark.
I had a question, and I'm still new to the budgeting process, so I'm not as good at finding stuff. But is there any funding in here for Middle Cheshire Road sidewalks or Outhouse Road sidewalks?
No, not really. Let's go into the detail. One there. So let's see. Probably the easiest way is let's look at this screen over here. Jim, you can figure move that chair. It's just blocking them. See that. So this is actually the budget detail, the same thing you're looking at. So we'll go into the general fund and then what we'll look at here is we'll look at expenses. And then 3310 is like our traffic stuff. So I'm just going to scroll down here to 3310, traffic contractual, traffic equipment, traffic contractual. So what I'm going to do is just pull up the detail here. So this is speed signs, gateway signs. That's the engineering for installation and 5 additional gateway signs there. Traffic contractual, the next line here. You'll see here road name signs, painting of roads, engineering of passing zones. So there's nothing per se relative to those in there. When you get down into the 8,000 lines, that's where you see some of the stuff for like planning, engineering, contractual, some of the other stuff. But one of the ongoing challenges is just finding, truthfully, just the money to go around as much as possible. Let's see, there is this Middle Cheshire Road. I'm just going to pull this up here. Was that say scoping?
Scoping and walkability and
So
getting the
that's some of the
easements.
easement stuff
Okay.
there, so there is some money in there for that, but that's not construction. That would just
That's the
be-
easement,
Yeah.
door to door.
Now, we have also over and above the budget, we're in the process right now of applying for a grant, as you know, to do almost the equivalent of like a highway master plan, kind of sort of, I guess is what we generally call it. It would take a lot of this into consideration as well as like sidewalks and plus we're doing the sidewalk envisionment, in the map plan report for that, but there's not really money in here for true construction.
Do we need any easements on outhouse?
Most of that can be done in the right of way. Rachel?
Thank you very much.
I was asking, I assume we're talking about potentially complete streeting outhouse. Do we need easements for sidewalks on outhouse?
No.
On the west
We
side?
own the property.
Yeah, I figured we own most of
Yeah,
it.
that's-
Okay,
But Jim and I had talked, I think even during the budget time, I think it's actually may even be listed under the department head, because remember on each section of the budget, you can look at the department head request and then you can look at what the proposed kind of preliminary, and we had talked even, I think maybe a couple of $1 million to do outhouse as a complete street, right? I mean, for full on everything, I mean, it's very expensive.
I mean, do we have anything from the general fund unassigned we can start moving in a direction? I mean, I think there was an accident there yesterday, on outhouse.
Well, step one would really be, yes, we've certainly talked about different things, right? We're doing the UPWP study, the grant, that would envision, as well as the sidewalk envisionment, that would allow us to go after grants for things like that. We applied for a tip grant in 21. It was for North Road, and we've talked about that for a decade,
Yeah.
and that got denied.
Yeah.
Part of it is though, we didn't have the full out planning engineering stuff that we're talking about doing is this next step with the UPWD
Mhm.
grant application, right? So, could you appropriate money towards it? Absolutely, but the trouble is, it starts to go very quick when you're appropriating, you know, especially those sorts of projects. That's
I just don't want-
massive.
I just don't want to see another year go by without some movement on it, is all I'm saying. I just want to have some sort of movement in the direction of getting an off-road trail in some way on Outhouse. So,
Honestly, then the town board should make a budget adjustment. If they want a budget adjustment, if you're gonna appropriate that kind of money to start that. Because that's not in the current budget.
yeah, I know, that's why I couldn't find it, so that's why I was bringing it up. So,
Remind me of our capital project for the outhouse park capital project.
Outhouse West?
Yes. Do we have any in there? No, nothing in there for the street, for the side, nothing in there for the sidewalks.
No, it's just a connection
Right.
from one side to the other, but it's
Right.
not, I think that line what you're talking about, right, is a complete street.
I would like eventually to see the complete street there, but I mean, I would like even any form of method for someone to safely traverse the west side of Outhouse Road from
Yeah.
one end to the other.
Right,
That's-
so that, well, from one end, you mean from Ocean Junction to Building 100? Or do you mean from
No,
Buffalo Street Extension?
I mean
to-
Buffalo Street Extension to whatever we want to call it, North Road,
North Bloomfield
give it a County Road 30, whatever it is.
Now, obviously, we have the trails within Outhouse Park.
Yes.
It's not the same as complete street, obviously. I know that highway department's getting ready to start on paving portions, and then we've applied for a grant that we're waiting to hear back from to pave all of the pathways inside of Outhouse. It would go all the way up the Auburn Trail up to the Civic Center. So there would be an option, but that would not be obviously I want to do.
Could we even get it started between like Happiness House and in the inclusive playground? I mean,
Even the
first step.
engineering, Jim, what ballpark, what would the engineering to engineer the road as a complete street?
I don't even mean a full-on complete street. I just mean
Sidewalk.
even what we've got on
It would
Middle
have to
Chester.
be
Some-
engineered, though. You'd have to
Yeah.
start with the engineering before you do anything.
Are you just looking
Agreed.
to get from one side of the street to the other?
No,
No, she's
I'm
talking
talking
about
about
the line.
walking along
Oh.
Outhouse Road.
I
I just want to get it started. I think we should eventually get there, but
mean, you're looking at probably 450 for just sidewalk, 450,000 for the sidewalk.
for the engineering or putting it
That's
in?
just for its concrete and
Yeah.
the stone base.
Let's talk about the engineering.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Design.
just wanted to know. 30, if they have go up there and survey everything, engineer it. 30,000.
I
So,
mean, we could always get a proposal specifically, and then you could always do a budget adjustment later. too.
well, how much do we still have hanging out in the unassigned fund balance, the general fund unassigned?
You see, that's where you gotta watch, because it starts to go very quickly, right?
Mhm.
So I gave you in the budget, right, is the fund balance report and the fund balance. So as of September 8th, the unappropriated general fund unassigned fund balance is 2.7 million. But, okay, looking here at the general fund, we need 674 to balance the 2023 budget. So if, but it's a big if, right? And this is where you're really truly moving shells. at this point, Because if we were to spend every single dollar for 12/31/22, right? We would need 674,000 of that 2.7 million to balance the 2023 budget, assuming that every single dollar is spent.
Mhm.
But in all practicality, not every dollar always gets spent, right?
Mhm.
And so actually in the last couple of years, we actually haven't even used or used very little of the appropriation. So it's the combined unused of the appropriation plus the sales tax that has really driven up the unassigned fund balance numbers, but I shared this.
It's supposed to be at like 1.1 million, right? Or what is it supposed to be at?
It should
We
be,
have that upstairs, unfortunately.
it's supposed to be about 1 million.
Yeah.
So the thing, and we talked a little bit about this at the last budget workshop meeting, I wanted to go back to this number of sales tax, so, and I think Terry brought this up. Previous appropriations for sales tax versus what we actually collected, so in 2020, we collected 4.5 and we budgeted 3.2, right? 21, we collected 5.5, but we had only budgeted 3.8. In 22, we collected 5.6, or estimated to collect 5.6, and we only budgeted for 4.1. However, the way the preliminary budget is currently, the budgeted amount for 2023 is 5.3, so it's a huge increase. So I would say it uses, and now based on your last vote, that now 5.4. Just hypothetically, speaking, obviously we're still going to make some adjustments and everything, but hypothetically we're at 5.4. So there's not the huge difference that we've had in previous years. And part of that was we had really scaled back the budget in 2020 as a result of COVID in 2021, not knowing what was going to happen with COVID, and the sales tax numbers still came in stronger than we had anticipated. But
And
there's
now we've got
not
higher
1.5 million.
costs and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really doubt sales tax is going to come in at $6 million.
Yeah.
We're gonna be pretty break even at that number.
But we still, so are you using anything from the unassigned fund balance currently towards the budget?
Yes, so that's this 674,000.
We could make and I'm gonna bring this up again later, but we could make a capital project for sidewalks in that area. So we could make, and I know we talked about this before, making, it would involve making more capital projects, but for some of these longer term projects that we have going on that we were trying to get done over a period of several years, that probably makes the most sense. So we can create that project and we can keep working through it. And we might have it might be running for 5-6 years
That's okay.
while everything's right. And then when it's done, and we close it out and we move on.
Well, that's like, obviously, in the budget, is like most capital project for highway, right?
Yeah.
You can do those, and then the best time to fund those is at the end of the year.
Mhm.
January, when you've got the
That's
final
right.
number.
And we know where we are.
Pretty much where you're at, then you can look at whatever the dollar number is appropriate.
So I'd suggest that we put that on to create a capital project.
I
That's
think that
something
makes a lot of
you want. We
sense.
put a capital
For
project
the
there for
engineering.
that, especially with the traffic
Mhm.
that area is getting, especially with foot traffic that area is getting, especially with potential down the road that we could see in that whole general area from the YMCA all the way to Motion Junction. That we do create a capital project specifically for that. And we could define it, how far we're talking, where exactly we're talking about, how far down we're talking about, and what we're looking to put in it. That probably gives us our best
Little way at it.
flexibility
Yeah.
rather than trying to nickel and dime it.
Mhm.
How many people walk to Roadhouse Park versus driving?
Almost everybody who lives in the Overlook Drive neighborhood is walking over there. Including, I know a lot of people who personally walk there from the low-income apartments up on top of the hill. They're walking down the sidewalk and crossing over.
They don't go into the park and walk on the trails.
Well, they can't do that to get to Motion Junction. There's no trail to get to Motion Junction.
No, but in Roadhouse Park, there's trails.
That's across the street, so, no, most people walk along the road and ride their bikes along the road. Trails are trails in the park are more, designed to be like a walking trail and like an exercise
Isn't that what
track.
they're doing? Walking.
They're walking, there's walking for the sake of walking, there's walking to get to a feature
They're
like
walking,
the playground or the YMCA or Happiness House
I
or.
would like to see a capital project set up for roads. We keep ducking
Yeah.
this every
Yeah, no, I
single
agree with that
year.
too. Yeah.
Right, I think we should do
I
both,
think that's
yeah,
an
I think
excellent
that would be a
point.
great idea.
We got more money than we know what to do with, so yeah, let's do both.
All right,
Your suggestion, I'm sorry, your own suggestion is highway maintenance, right, as opposed to a complete street.
right, yeah.
So, do we do this now or?
Do we need to,
No.
I don't think that's a change. I don't think we need to vote on the capital, we know we're gonna do both, bring it back at the next, we can do that at a regular meeting. Yeah, and have that on there, so we're gonna do that, yep. Since we're on here, since the first few pages, if we wanna go, I think people have pages marked for specific questions, so rather than jumping around, and we'll kind of go in order with where we have. One thing that I would like added, and this is at no cost at this point, it's just a placeholder, and this is on, so this is on page 45. So town law, chapter 29, section 15 does provide a confidential secretary for the town supervisor. I would like to propose creating that position, not funded, but just to create that position and have it held even at $1. And that is, it would be under 1220, 110. So
It's also
adding
6 of 72 if you're
Yeah.
looking on the other part.
adding that, not allocating any money towards it, but just putting that there as a placeholder
So
for the position.
we'll need to create a new budget line. So it would be, so the town supervisor's salary is this 1220.110.
Yep.
And then we would need to create a new,
Okay,
like 1220.115 or whatever the number
Okay.
is, the system will let us generate.
Yep.
We'll have to create a new line, not a big deal. Like you said, we can place it as a dollar.
and I'm not proposing anything there, but just to have it
Okay.
in case down the road, but no dollar amount, no adjustment to the budget would be needed.
Sure you don't want $9.
Yeah, $9, yeah. That seems to be my number of choice for 9 million. Okay, going through to other pages, anybody have anything?
I'd like to ask about cemeteries. And we're not doing the contract for mowing next year. Reduces the budget, but you're increasing one seasonal parks labor, is that correct?
I think it's more than that, so, for the cemetery one,
Yeah, I think there were 2. I was just looking at
So
that.
here's cemetery contractuals right here, it's 8810,400. And when I look at the detail here, so this has the normal contract that we do with Pine Bank Cemetery, that's $5,000. A split rail test for the Cooley, Michigan Road at $1250. Education, public engagement, I think you guys have requested about $1,000. Headstone preservation of $5,000. And then we always put about $1,000 in for burial costs at academy, which we have to. That's just standard. So that total contractual, I think it's 13,000. I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble seeing it.
13,250.
Yeah.
I had to look down to and adjust the cheaters a little bit.
It's the new loan.
It's pretty sure.
So then Karen, to answer your question, so
23.
then the proposal is that Parks would take over all of the mowing for a variety of different things, all parks, all cemeteries, plus also Uptown, the Uptown Business Improvement District and all of that stuff. So there are some increases in here for parks, for new employees. I think I spelled that out on the lines there, but it's all under the seasonal stuff. So we're gonna actually have to increase, I'm sorry, here it is, part seasonal right here. So this would be a new hire, a part-time seasonal, 2 new mowing hires, and then a third new hire. So it's actually 4 net new positions. They're all considered part-time, but because they only work seasonal hours, so they don't get benefits and stuff. But yes.
Okay.
The other thing that's in the budget related to mowing is there's 2 new mowers, one for water as well as an additional for parks. because of all this mowing.
Right, I just wanted to verify that, thank you. So, and then there was a lot of park improvements while we we're hanging out in the park world here, like the cabin upgrades and crouch. Are those coming from the CM fund? Why not?
So, because the CM fund is for new improvements.
Well, I mean, like the new cabin, I mean. Or is that just, I'm seeing cabin upgrades, I thought that was like a new cabin, but
So.
it's A 100, 200, and then a million zeros.
So the Parks Fund is currently proposed to transfer in $85,000.
The CM parks. Okay,
And then that relates specifically to expenses that are called out. And there's a separate line
okay,
because they have to match up exactly. So
Yeah. I'm just wondering what it's going, where it's coming from and what it's going towards. in the-
Details, so 7110-201. So I gotta go back, sorry.
No, it's okay.
7110-201. Everything ties in together, so the auditors can track it back and forth.
So that's the McJanet Park expansion to the gully,
So
that's 50,000.
it's this, so it's 25,000 Townhouse West for Reservoir 22.
Yep.
-191.
Mhm.
McJanet Park expansion, McJanet Park expansion to the Vista.
Okay, cool.
Another park tent sites and another park upland playground.
All right,
Well,
Great.
that's $1. I'm sorry, that's $1. The upland park playground is $1. We have questions about that. That playground actually, I don't know if we started taking the ground or not, but it's not safe. And so we've got to do something different. But keep in mind, we have that whole plan that we're talking about. We'll need a capital project for that. That's clearly going to span multiple years
Yeah.
also. We have to bring back some details. with that.
Mhm.
That's where that.
I just want to make sure some of the CM was used for those improvements, so perfect.
50,000, the overwhelming majority of it, it looks like 60,000 is going from McJanet.
For
Park
McJanet Park, yeah. Mhm.
and
That's-
expansion to 60 of the 85,000.
Yep. For the trail and the drive.
On the property, which by the way has closed down.
Yes, I saw it. Oh, so that whole, is it that whole section then that is in here under 711-201, that whole section is all from the CM fund? Is that why that's divided?
Yes, that
Okay.
specific, that 7110.201, that means that's coming from.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation. As opposed to the $410,000 from loan.
Okay. Yep. Mhm. Got it. Thank you. We just figured out while we were hanging out over in Parks World.
By the way, I think there's some of the budget message, Jim, Lindsay and I are gonna meet at Thursday this week, but I feel like there's a fair amount of that 400,000 plus or minus, and even some of that 85,000 there work that, highway department can probably do. So we'll kind of get a win-win situation, I feel like there, where Parks will reimburse highway for the expense. That also gives highway more money to be able to do some additional stuff. I know Jim doesn't want to go out and work in the parks all summer, but there's some things that can be done.
Next year, the lifeguards people at our parks are gonna be under the Y, so they're gonna take care of the whole thing, but we still have like guards, you know, park rangers, those people. Do we have a problem getting those people at $17 an hour?
Yeah.
I mean, 17 is the numbers.
You're talking lifeguards or park rangers, Terry?
Park rangers.
Oh, park rangers? No, we're okay with park rangers. Lifeguards. So one thing about that, let's just touch on that second. So park rangers, there's been any number of different assortment of either young folks, even some older folks that adults, even seniors, I know have been talking about doing the park ranger, and being there working a couple of hours a week. But you were signed it, I thought.
You said you were bored,
Yeah,
Karen, and
yeah,
you
but-
needed things
no,
again.
so- But but the lifeguards carry, so with the new agreement, obviously, we didn't have the Y agreement when, or the concept, it's not approved, obviously, at this point, but when we put together the budget. The Y will provide lifeguards during the day for, we will still have to provide lifeguards for Butler all the time. We'll also still have to provide lifeguards for, there's about a 2-hour window at the end of the day, as well as on weekends. So we won't need all the money that is in this budget for lifeguards, because the Y will be picking up some of that. I've got to run the specifics with Lindsay this week to tell you exactly what it is, but we will need some, but yeah, essentially, I mean, your lifeguards, you're having to pay close to $20 an hour, $5 an hour.
They could be the same people. Though. I mean, we hired for the weekend, the Y employees, $8 during the day. And during the week.
Potentially, it's my understanding that the Y's training requirements and some of the things that they require actually lead me to believe they have some of their own lifeguards, and they may actually be different. Some may be the same, yes. When Lindsay and I talked about it, Lindsay really felt strongly like the Y will be recruiting almost from like a different pool, so to speak, in terms of lifeguards, allowing us to actually use some of our existing lifeguards and previous lifeguards to further staff Butler Road Beach, making sure that that's able to stay open for the whole season as well as those weekends.
Good.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Page 57, I guess is the page number on the
On
side.
the left-hand side.
Yeah, it's actually 56. So you're purchasing laptops for town board members, but only 4. Did I read that wrong?
It says in there, the town board laptops with monitors 5, it says 10,000.
Oh, okay. I saw up above laptop computers 4.
So that one's 5. So nobody has to fight over the last one.
Yeah, have fun with those.
Thanks.
You think next year we'll actually have a 5-member board?
I would add a couple things on page 47 for the audits. We are in the process of doing an RFP for audit services. Just to make everybody aware of that. I do want to, the next thing that I have, if we're going through kind of an order, page 53, we do have the communications officer. The communication consultant, that amount of 35,000. And I would like to put that on the table for some discussion. Where people are with that. And people's thoughts.
What page is that?
That is,
53
it's page 53. If
Or
you're
the-
going with the numbers on the left.
Or the 14 of 72.
It's you're going with the numbers on the bottom right.
Pull it up here on- It's 1480, 400. So generally what we're doing when we're talking about the budget and internally and stuff is we're always using these account codes. This is the New York State Comptroller Chart of Accounts. So 1480, not 100, that's the public informational service contractual. line here. So you
It's
see that
this
one's
right here.
funded at $1, the one just below it, the public service informational contractual, and then when we look at the details, that's where this communication consultant is here for 35,000, plus you've got newsletter cost of about 2,500. Communication software subscription, it's 18,000. Zoom subscription, 1,250, and MailChimp at 500.
That's not civil service.
This would be a contractual expense, so this would not be civil service. This would be a consultant or hiring of a company. It's about 400 of contractual expense.
So that would be, I mean, looking at it year over year, that would, 2022, we adopted 3,900 for that. So 2023, it would be a jump to 57,250. I know we've talked about the communication software to improve information that goes out to the residents and how we push information out, similar to a reverse 911 type of thing. That 35,000 to me is high. I'd just like to open it up to where people's thoughts are on that, where people would be comfortable with that number.
What would this person do?
Not a person.
It's a company. It would be a company or a consultant.
Somebody.
I mean, all the time I've been on this board, I've heard the same thing from various people. Nobody tells us anything. You don't communicate well. We communicate with half a dozen different forms. You can't communicate with people if they don't want to listen. So, I mean, I just to hire somebody on a one-shot basis, a company, a person, whichever, come in here and say, you're doing this, this, and this, but you could add these two things to it, and it would make you more effective. Okay, but to hire on a continuing basis, somebody, a company or somebody, I just I don't see it.
So what would you say if we move that number to 10? To put that as a cap to try to bring somebody in. And 10,000, not $10, yeah, I have to clarify, I know with my track record tonight, I have to clarify. What's that?
Terry's good with $10.
You're good with
I would agree with Karen Parker's, where it's very hard to communicate with people. I've seen it. County boards, the state, the towns all put this information out there. But the citizen has to be the person who seeks the information, and they're not seeking it until there's an issue. So if we're doing everything right, and we put in the sidewalks and we set, the park and everything, people are just happy, but they're not seeking out
Right.
anything we do on a monthly basis. They're not looking for it. And how do you change that mindset? I agree.
So I mentioned this before, the things that I've found helpful, and I think, again, to Karen's point, if you want to address a younger clientele, is there are apps. There's many apps that you can utilize to keep you updated on a project. So you could be saying, okay, I'm interested in the Outhouse Road Sidewalk Capital Project or Jim's Highway Fund Capital Project, whatever it is, and click on it. And then when there's changes made to that, it's kind of automatically updating you through an app. I'd be interested in exploring something like that as opposed to, I don't think there's really any source space that we're missing too much other than something like an app. There is no paper. There is, but we're already fully utilizing Facebook and I believe Instagram as well. Unless we want to get a TikTok page, I think an app is gonna kind of be the way to go.
And I would, building on that, with what Terry said about people, if you're, and Karen too, you gotta look for it. And we're putting it out there. I mean, I could get on my phone right now and I could send a message out that would ping on John Casey's phone, on Adeline's phone, and on Jim Fletcher's phone right now and push a message out to them. And I could do that. And at the end of the day, I will still have people coming back to me saying, you never let us know. So I think it's systemic versus, something that we're not doing. If it's something that the board supports and we want to keep a dollar amount in here, so we could have somebody come back and say, you're doing a great job, or here's a way you could improve, try this. For a smaller dollar amount that I could support, but I think we've moved away from the thought of having somebody do it, a hired position.
Let me ask Doug, where did the 35 number come from?
I think that was from actually exactly what Terry said. We had gotten some estimates on what it would take if we were to put out an RFP, right? Because we don't know exactly what it would be. But if we were to put out an RFP for somebody to come in and do an analysis about what it would be. Additionally, in this particular line though, is also an app subscription for exactly what we talked about.
Right, that's 18,000.
I've since the preliminary budget's been done, I've been told by a couple of different companies that number's probably 25-ish. But again, I mean, until we start getting
Right,
exact.
we don't,
So
right,
hard.
right, we don't know.
Which companies did we talk to about for the apps?
I don't know the names of them off the top of my head, but we get, I mean, sales calls daily.
Oh, I know, I got the emails too. so.
Different entities, and we've done Zoom meetings with, I think, 3 or 4 of them. They're all in 20, 25,000.
10 it is.
Are you okay with 10?
Hopefully we don't spend it.
Okay.
Unless we find something that is,
If it's something that knocks our socks off, then we can make an adjustment
can always be,
coming back at it. Okay,
we have contingency money.
right. Do we need a vote on, do we want to vote on that to lower that to 10? Is everybody in favor of lowering it to 10? Okay, Adeline,
I mean, if that's what everybody wants to do, that's
Okay.
fine.
so lower that one to 10? Bless you.
Well, we're on the same page, elections, contractual, what is that amount for?
That's the amount that we have to pay to the Ontario County Board of Elections each year. That's an annual contract amount that we have to pay
For them to set up,
for them to, yeah. In the
Yeah.
elections.
Okay.
For each of the towns that's required.
right above on the same page.
Oh,
Not a lot of money, but what's the deal? DIELS.
What is it? The Beals system? That's in, that's the bulk. Isn't it the bulk? That's the bulk ventilation system. Yeah.
that's always.
It's to keep the.
The records
the
from getting
records
moldy.
From getting moldy or damaged and anything.
Speaking of records, also we've all seen the collection of file cabinets in our.
Good. Who's put in there? So you've noticed.
I think at one time I asked you, how many records are there that have to be copied?
Yeah.
What was the number again?
It's like 15 million total. Rebecca's the expert. Where are we at, Rebecca?
Too many.
Rebecca going through those. It's fantastic.
I kind of, I mean, because there's money in here to hire somebody to do that full time.
There was an ask in here, but it didn't get.
That didn't get
fulfilled.
funded, right, but there's money in there. We had received a grant, right? And so the grant is finishing up right now for records conversion. And Rebecca, right, the majority of that was the documents in the highway building is what got converted to digital. So that's all the maps and all the water lines, all the highway, all that stuff. So that's all got converted. Rebecca is the
Can I ask,
primary one.
Are they stored at general code? Is that,
They're not, they're stored in a program called Laserfish.
okay.
For
Right.
this,
I have done this in Williamson Town for assessment rules. And it all went to general code and they hold on. And there was a laser fiche also. though. Same idea.
Yeah, same, I think general code actually.
will they ever get done?
No,
When the Auburn Trail's finished.
Stop.
we
Just,
get new projects.
Yeah, it's
every
those
day.
big, huge projects.
Ah,
Gives us something to work for, to have it done.
I don't know
Make work.
what Rebecca just said, but it is the truth. I mean, they're basically, Rebecca is keeping up with the new stuff coming in and converting the new stuff. So getting back to that extra stuff, that's why Gene was asking for the additional person to help work on all that stuff.
you just put them someplace secure and then they're there. If you need to get at them, somebody can go pull that file out.
Well,
Rather than spending money trying to.
I mean, it's the same thing, right? So you do access the property files, obviously, for new development and everything else. They are part of the records retention, was it 7 years? Or no, for properties. it's
For properties, it's permanent unless it's like correspondence or insurance, then that's 6 years.
And then the other thing is the same exact thing, it's like the moisture, right? So even this room here itself, it may have too much moisture in it, and so they decompose. A lot of times you'll see in those property files, some of the paper, it's very, very hard to read because the ink has started disappearing.
How far back do those records go?
I've seen stuff from like the 30s and 40s in those property files.
If you only have to keep them 6 or 7 years.
No,
Not
only the
property.
correspondence.
That's permanent.
Permanent records for those properties.
Unless the house burns down or they tear it down and rebuild it, then the original file is 6 years of the torn down part, but most of the time it's permanent.
That is what we call an unfunded statement. Yeah.
It's a goal. Something to shoot for.
You talked about this, Jared, that on page 54 or 15, whichever one you want.
Page one.
Under capital equipment,
54.
fire station improvements. With the need for a generator.
Yeah.
Station
At the
2.
fire station too.
Yeah, so that's 1620, 200, 200 being the capital equipment expenditure. So there's fire station improvements in there that are not currently funded. Right? We need to have a conversation about a whole variety of things relative to that fire station. It's owned by the town of Canada, but is a general fund expense because all town property, of the town of Canada is a general fund expense, even for instance, like the highway building. We need to talk about the future and what you want to do with that building. There's an immediate need of a generator, right? But if there's longer term needs too, that we need to talk about. Whether it's roofs, which, you know, I know that there's been a number of things. Just recently, we fixed the lights at the building. We just recently fixed fire sprinklers at the building. There's this is 332 fire station. There's any number of things that need to go, that need to happen, right? Plus, we have other needs that we keep hearing about, that we know about, whether it's, you know, hopefully we've got employees that are sitting on top of each other that are complaining about how close they are having to work in working conditions to, you know, do you do a different kind of building in Uptown, with that being part of the future of Uptown? Do we have additional offices over there? What does all that kind of stuff look like? So I apologize. I mean, we had a big meeting and I got COVID, so.
We'll forgive you once. You get one free COVID.
But we need to.
So far, everybody's had their free COVID, except for myself.
You got a free back.
So you're thinking putting that in there so we can, because I think the generator is the most important part right now. And I know if there's a threat of losing power, the door has to stay open. Because they can't, if you have one person there, you can't get the door open.
You could drive through.
You could drive through, and that was some instruction that was given.
Call the fire department.
Yeah.
Is there 20,000 bucks floating around this year?
20,000 just for generator, that's not installed.
Right,
Well,
You need about 40,000.
just to plug it in? Isn't it just a plug?
Oh, no.
Well, no, that's, I don't think it works that way.
It's like a hot tub. You gotta get an electrician out there.
All right. So we're looking at about 40, at 45?
Right, put new concrete paddings, it's gonna be the same size.
Right.
Right, to increase the pipe size for natural gas, 'cause it's bigger,
Right.
so.
There are associated improvements that would need to happen.
Yeah,
Raising
you
that.
should budget a generator.
Right,
So I put in 45.
okay.
Actually, yes. To answer your question, Terry, in the 2022 budget, we currently have 35,000 in this budget for roof replacement of that building that we fell off on doing because we haven't had our conversation. So we could absolutely use that money, at least get the generator done while we have our longer term conversation.
Let's
Get that done immediately.
Let's allocate that if we need to tap into our
My
contingency.
suggestion, Doug, would be to have a resolution to purchase a generator, because it won't be here for about 36 weeks.
Oh, geez.
Right, and then the other problem.
And then uncover those funds.
Okay,
That's in the 22 budget, the 35?
right.
So the other thing is, right, this is where all this stuff needs to come together. Get the generator here and we're gonna place it probably where the existing one is, and then if you decide
Well,
that we're gonna do a different building.
we
then
can-
we're gonna-
right, but that would be, yeah, that's years.
First,
Down
let's
the
make
road.
sure
So
that
let's make
we
sure
get
that-
out of the building.
Let's make sure our guys can get out.
It's kind of important.
Yeah, so let's look into that, and even if we have to look at some of the contingency to fill any gaps, and we can use that to encumber and get it all taken care of.
I think there's probably enough money there in 16,200, based on where we're at. We currently have 130,000.
Okay.
available.
All right,
Okay.
perfect. All right, so yeah, that would be good, and then we can,
So can we get that reso in for the October meeting, maybe?
We'll try.
and
Maybe
maybe
we
we'll-
can still do a purchase order. And,
Yeah, it's all through on JPA bidding, so it's already bid for, as we say, in West Virginia.
maybe we'll get a Black Friday deal coming up.
No.
No. Okay. Always open.
Come on, Jim.
I'm always open.
The other reason is that, we'll try for that for the meeting, but having a final deadline Wednesday for resolution for this week because of the holiday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I do want to hit on that page, anybody before page 60, I want to jump to 60. And this is 7/2100. This is the recreation director with the YMCA taking over that program and helping to run that for us. And I think the kind of consensus is that we don't need to fund that right now going forward. I know the Parks Committee is of similar agreement going forward with that. So I would propose eliminating, eliminating that 52,000. We could keep it since we created it. But keep it at a placeholder.
So that is not a currently employed person, that's a new position.
We haven't filled it.
We created it, but we did not fill it. But
Mhm.
since we created it, if we just hold it. And then we can see how the program goes with the YMCA and if that's providing for our needs.
Mhm.
And we can go forward with that.
Is Lindsay still gonna be doing recreation and parks then, or is more of that gonna be taken on by the Y or what?
Yeah, so, the first question, so what actually I need to make that a dollar, it's just the way. that
Yeah.
the budget
Yeah, that's
is.
right. That's what I was contemplating.
So Lindsay would still be heading up, yes, no, there'd be no change in that in terms of Parks and Recreation. The Y has any number of staff members, Jason Godfrey is the local director for the Y that's already started working very closely with Lindsay. And so they'll be coordinating on everything, but the Y will actually be running all of the recreation programs for both parks, on everything else. So they'll.
But
be
not
employed-
like the senior rec program or
Correct.
things
not
like,
the senior
okay.
rec. Well, I shouldn't say that. So I think there is an opportunity maybe to incorporate that because there's an interest in that from the conversation that we've had with the law. Lindsay will still coordinate that in the meantime, but it potentially could happen with that same agreement that we have that are doing right now with the law to help administer the senior rec program. Coordinate that.
What's the, on that same page, what's the parks publication for $500? I was just wondering what that was.
Those are the season passes. for-
Oh, gotcha.
those are the- some-
Mhm.
On page 67, on the left side, 67. zoning officer full-time on the bottom. Is this a new hire?
It is an entire position that we created this year that is desperately needed, and we're desperately trying to fill it. And if you know anybody who would like to apply for a zoning officer position, please have them reach out to us. It is sort of needed, so we haven't been able to fill it yet. Our goal is to fill it before the end of the year, and this will be the first full year that we can fund it.
But that's also one we used to have, right, and eliminated with COVID.
We furloughed the before the COVID.
Right, but that's definitely a benefit. I do have page 71, unless somebody has something before that. 71 on the left,
Pick which 71 are we
you
looking
know, 71. on the
71
left,
and 32. yeah.
32.
Mhm.
So that is 80-2431, and that is the MRB contract for affordable housing. They did not, talking to Matt, he's really not billing anything for this year. It's a small amount to bill for work that he has done this year. And since the cost for that, I would propose cutting this in half to 5. Keeping it there, that gives some money with some of the studies that wanted to be done, but also at the end of the day, leaves us open to, hopefully, with results coming back from the county and then a robust county effort going forward, that this could work into what the county is doing. And the county could be the lead on that. That would be my ultimate goal for something like this.
Is the county creating an affordable housing committee or? a leadership team?
Right now, that we're waiting for results to come back from an RFP that should be back sometime next year, maybe halfway through the year.
Okay.
Which will have the results, and it's urban planners who are doing it, and they're looking at everything, doing an inventory,
From a wider
gaps from
perspective,
the entire county. And then they will come back with recommendations, and from there, the county would go forward with those recommendations and then share those out. Any questions or thoughts on that? Nope. You guys okay with that?
As long as we can honor our existing contract.
Okay, right. That Doug?
Page 72, let's see, what is it? You 160, 130. The question about, a second person backing up Todd out there. We didn't, I mean, you tried to do it this year, but it didn't work out. So you don't want to include it next year.
Correct.
You just couldn't find anybody for it, or?
Part of the issue is what do you just do with a separate person for full time? Because I don't need trash hauled every day. I do need hauled certain days. If Todd's here and he's here, what does the second person do during that time?
Mhm.
So.
Do they need like a CDLA and
I
such?
I think some, well, where really come with Todd was, there was some health issues. He was gone a lot.
Mhm.
And we used quite a bit of my staff to fill in. And we were looking for someone to back Todd up in the event that carries on. But I think, first, I think going forward, once we get this transfer station ironed out and we have additional hours, there will be need for a second person to fill the hours needed for the time slots, not only for it to be there, but to move the trash back and forth. So.
Did we discuss yet? Are we all cool with creating a capital budget for highway? Are we? I thought that sounded like a great idea. but-
Highway maintenance.
Yeah, I know. And we'll set this up, something, I just don't, I think we're all good with it.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention. I think that was a,
South Knox Road. the street.
And I would throw a third out there to put on our list is the fire hall, or fire station 2. All right, I don't think I have anything else.
We could just make the outhouse road complete streets. We could just make that complete streets in general. Use it where needed.
County not for more than that, it's not all right.
Yes, we received an additional $1,000 per mile, so it's an
68,
increase of like,
6,800.
yes.
That's what I
An
wrote down.
increase of like 27,000 more, Terry. Somewhere in that range. We went from 148 to 167. That's for 1 year.
Yeah.
And we're gonna review that next year. In order to use data from our GPS and how much we operate on county roads to get a better understanding of how much we actually fire plow in county roads. And it's a complicated formula, it's very long, it's not simple to explain. So I'm not sure we'll make it easier, but we'll try to make it more applicable for the town and the county. So we feel like we're getting paid what we should.
So I saw you've got the North Road Complete Street thing at $1 again. Is that being held up for monetary reasons or is there more issues with?
I'm sorry, what?
The Complete Street North Road is basically not funded. It's just a placeholder in there.
Oh,
It's under GA 100 511 400,
What page?
page 79. I'm just, it's not even funded. I'm just wondering.
well, I actually, I put a ton of money.
Okay,
I asked for all kinds.
I know, I saw that.
And Doug looks at me and goes, Jimmy, you can
No.
afford it. I know.
Remember
But I put it
Yeah,
in
no,
there.
I remember,
I
yeah.
put it in there just as a reminder, like, look,
Yeah,
these are things that we gotta fund.
so that's a funding issue, not there's the easements and stuff are figured out over there, or?
So there's some poles that gotta be moved and some other stuff, but you could kind of squeak it in there, the sidewalk, kind of here and there. So we will, there's might need some easements at these spots, some dug out to his favorite person and
I think generally though, what we said is we can do most of it for.
right.
Yeah,
But there's still other things that have to happen, the water line.
But yeah, warming is.
that's what I'm wondering. I mean, we've been saying that for like 10 years now, so
Yeah,
I'm wondering
I
what.
reminded Pete the other day, I'm like, I'd like you to finish a water main so we can finish the road,
Okay,
because I don't wanna,
That's the holdup.
it's
Yeah.
the water mains,
it's a water.
so we still can't really be just figuring it out until they get that water main. Is that
Yep.
Farmington?
Yeah, it's Farmington water.
I have a question,
Okay,
and I don't know where it was, because my notes, I was pretty foggy at home, probably. Total roads is 197 miles.
that's, so yes, if you count both lanes. So we have 101 center line miles,
This town road,
the town,
not county,
Not
not
county.
state.
not state.
101?
So we have 101 center line miles, which means
That's
one
two-
way.
Right, 202.
Yeah.
Got
We
it.
got multiplied.
About 100.
So I guess my question is, the county roads that we plow, did that rate go up?
It did.
Yeah,
Yeah, this year we met with Bill and we got another 1,000 per lane mile.
and you're okay with that?
We're good with it because we're capturing our increased cost with fuel and tire equipment. Was for 1 year.
Right.
Okay. And we'll have to review it probably July of next year. We'll have to start talking about it.
And
In order to get it.
Naples still holds out.
I know, I don't know if Naples, if you heard anything, if Naples is gonna plow county roads again or not. I think they are. I don't think they are.
I don't think
I
they're.
thought they. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Is that,
No, I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
I just, yeah, that's an old issue.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions or comments or thoughts going forward?
The other thing we have not talked about none is the business permit district that changes.
Correct. Okay. Have that on there, you can pull it out, if you like, so.
I don't remember that, but I don't know right now.
So we did talk at the last meeting about we talked about where we were at the time and the big increase that would be, especially for the first year. And we talked about how we could possibly reduce that almost in half. And trying to get this to scroll in. So basically reducing it in half, right, and levying $105,000 next year would give us about $15,000 in the unification line, and then basically the principal and debt, or principal and interest rather, on a bond anticipation note. And you know, in thinking about this in our conversation and going back and looking, there's so many unknowns that we have right now, including fire station, like we talked about everything. I think it makes a lot of sense, instead of planning for a bond next year to do the lights, to do maybe all this other stuff, we can float a bond anticipation note, that's what it's called. Hypothetically, $1 million, maybe. And we could roll in things like the sidewalk equipment that we would need to purchase, the street lights, maybe additional improvements to the fire station, any number of things. We'll figure that out in the future. But putting in the principal and interest there for $1 million band allows us to essentially reduce that tax rate in half. So the tax rate comes in instead at, let me just flip over my screen here, sorry. Reduces the tax rate to $1.91, which brings that payment down to about $800.
Yeah, I
So
like
about
that.
half will be-
And that's much more
Yeah,
palatable
under
across
1,000.
across the board.
And it gives us time, the flexibility to figure out what exactly we need.
And just another
That may or
reminder,
May not happen until sometime past the, you know, that could be a July to September 23 thing. As we start to figure out exactly what we need. I mean, we can still buy the snowplow equipment even this year, right? And then the Uptown Business Improvement District can reimburse the general fund.
I just want to reiterate that that is not to residential properties, so.
That is to commercial properties, yes. And so the district has now been established, the town board established their end. Last week, the county office of real property did the stuff they need to do. And Michelle actually went and upgraded every single one of the parcels, making sure that the residential is excluded and making sure that all the commercial properties are. And so that's that $55 million in assessed value is those commercial properties. So for instance, I know we had a conversation about, like, for instance, a small business in Uptown that maybe is renting in a plaza, right? They're not going to get that bill. The plaza owner will now. I mean, hypothetically, right? The plaza owner may pass on a piece of it, but the person renting.
Right. So is everybody comfortable with the rate as it sits at $1.91?
Yeah.
And then the other is just a discussion. I mean, I think we can approve that as part of the budget. And the other discussion to put on the back burner is that ban, once we figure out what we're looking at numbers wise. Otherwise to replace. And I think my feeling is, after the discussion, that we just do it. We don't try, like we talked about lights last time. We just do it. We don't try to piecemeal it. We don't try to retrofit. We just, which could end up being more money at the end of the day. We just come in and replace. And then get it all night, get it all good, get it all up, get it all going as a start. Okay. All right,
It's about
so,
$9 here.
what's that?
That rate, it's about $9.
Yeah, about $9. Yeah, I'm gonna go, it's a $9 hamburger or something. I don't know. All right, anything else?
So where are you guys at right now, based on the changes that you've talked about? $25,000 reduction in the patient consultant. A $52,000 reduction in the recreation director position, a $5,000 reduction in affordable housing. Means you're reducing expenses by $82,000. So I gotta make the budget balance, right? So easy. Yeah, Jim's like, I'll take it, right? Thanks.
You want it?
You're always there.
There you go. Wait a minute, there's your generator. Okay, done.
Not my generator.
We already paid for that.
So we could reduce revenue, sales tax, for instance, since we're gonna put more.
Let's do that.
Well, we also talked about putting something for the engineering into the complete streets.
But we were gonna create that,
We're gonna create a capital.
we're gonna create a capital project for
That would
that.
be a
Okay.
separate budget.
That would be January that we'd fund it.
Okay, got it.
So if we lower our sales tax, our anticipated sales tax amount by an amount equal to that dollar amount to zero us out.
Yeah, I would probably, maybe like 75,000, reducing the sales tax and then the all amount, just put it towards the appropriation. Okay, that's.
Right. That would be my feeling on that.
Or build the Auburn Trail. Take your pick.
I think it's the building that's the problem. It's the getting access to everything that's the problem,
Yes.
starting with the federal government.
Mhm.
There may be, so I'll detail all this, a lot of detail in the resolution, all these changes, including the changes that I emailed to you, because officially these have not taken
Right.
place. This would be the under the fire that we talked about tonight, and Idaho Farmington Water District and the Emerson Water District for the other ones, in addition to the ones that we talked here about tonight. And then detail that. The other thing is just FYI, when we take out the recreation director, I gotta look at the benefits that actually may go down a little bit too, so it actually might save some of the extra. I just gotta read the calculations and stuff, but it'll all be detailed in this.
Okay. And then we should be all set to approve it at the next meeting. For those, what's that?
I was just saying, do you know the privilege of the floor?
Yeah, so we do need that before we're done, but we will have, so at the next meeting, we should be approving the budget with those changes. If anything else from the board, any comments or questions, Jim? Do you have anything?
No.
Okay,
Thanks for all the hard work on it.
yeah, thank you, everybody, for all the hours and hours and hours put in over the last several months.
I'm sorry, there's one more thing. Not, that's got, it actually got worse because we increased the levy for the fire, so that should have a little bit.
Won't be long before the fire is greater than the property tax.
What was that?
The fire tax fee is gonna be greater than their property tax. I mean, given they generally keep
Right.
spending levels, so.
Right. All right, so that's, it does take us to the end. One last privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time?
No one else will, I will.
Mr. Casey,
Is there anyone else on? I guess there's one person on, right? So John Casey, County Road 16. And I just want to say thank you all. I think that I appreciate what you've done. I hope you all know that I'm sitting there. I've attended the last 2 workshops. I hope one day I'm sitting on that side of the table for many more. But I appreciate what you've done. I think you've done a very good job scrutinizing the budget. I think you've spent our taxpayer dollars in a very responsible way, and I applaud your diligence. And no one had to pay me to say this is how I truly feel about it. So I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
thanks. All right, anybody else like to be heard?
I think the odds are in your favor of sitting here.
I like that.
I hope so.
Those two.
All right, if there is nothing else to come forward at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.